The scalpel trembled in Abraham's hand, not from fear, but from the ghost of a 14-year-old boy's scream echoing in the sterile hum of the operating room. He stared down at the open chest cavity, the heart beneath his fingers beating like a trapped bird, and whispered to it, "Hold on. Just hold on for me." In that moment, as the monitors beeped their frantic Morse code, Abraham Thorne realized the universe had a cruel sense of poetry. The boy his parents had buried alive was now the one cradling their fragile lives in his bloodied palms. Seattle's perpetual drizzle painted the city in shades of gray, mirroring the fog that had settled in Abraham's chest since dawn. He was 35 now, a cardiothoracic surgeon at Harborview Medical Center, where the rain-slicked streets funneled the wounded straight into his hands. His days blurred into a rhythm of incisions and sutures, of lives teetering on the edge of monitors and his own unyielding will. But today, as he scrubbed out after a 12-hour aortic repair, the weight of that will felt heavier than the lead apron he shed like a second skin. He leaned against the sink, water cascading over his forearms, and let his mind drift back, as it always did in these quiet aftermaths. Back to that summer in Spokane, when the inland Northwest's endless skies had seemed as vast and indifferent as his parents' rejection. Abraham had been 14, all gangly limbs and unspoken questions, the kind that burned hotter than the July heat. His family lived in a modest ranch house on the edge of town, where his father, Harold Thorne, managed a hardware store, and his mother, Margaret, baked pies for the church bake sales. They were good people, or so the neighbors said, devout Presbyterians who tithed without fail and volunteered at the food bank. Abraham had believed it too, until the night he confessed. It started with a kiss. Not even a real one, just a stolen brush of lips behind the bleachers at a high school football game, with Tommy Whitaker, the quarterback with sun-bleached hair and a laugh that made Abraham's stomach flip like a stone skipped across Liberty Lake. Tommy had pulled away first, eyes wide, muttering something about it being a dare. But Abraham had felt it. The spark, the truth that had been coiling inside him since he first noticed the way boys moved in the locker room, all sinew and secret grace. He told his parents the next morning, over pancakes that tasted like ash. "I'm gay," he said, voice cracking like dry earth. Harold's fork clattered against the plate. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth, as if to trap a gasp. The silence stretched, thick as the smoke from Harold's untouched coffee. Then Harold stood, chair scraping the linoleum, and said, "This isn't you. This is a phase. A sickness." Margaret wept, not for him, but for the son she imagined she had lost. The straight, God-fearing boy who would marry a nice girl from church and give them grandkids with Harold's blue eyes. They prayed that night, on their knees in the living room, the cross above the mantel casting long shadows. Abraham knelt too, but his words were silent pleas to a different God, one who might understand the ache in his chest. By morning they had decided. Harold drove him to the bus station with a duffel bag of clothes and $50. "You're dead to us," he said, eyes fixed on the dashboard. "Don't come back until you're fixed." Margaret stayed in the car, her sobs muffled through the rolled-up window. The bus to Seattle was a blur of wheat fields and regret. Abraham arrived with nothing but that bag and a library card, crashing on the couch of a distant cousin who ran a diner in Capitol Hill. She was kind in a no-nonsense way, serving him hash browns and advice in equal measure. "Kid, this city's got rain for your tears and rainbows for your flag. Use them." He enrolled in night school, bussing tables by day, his hands chapped from dishwater, but his resolve hardening like scar tissue. High school was a gauntlet. Abraham kept his head down, excelling in biology because hearts, human ones, fascinated him. They pumped without judgment, mending breaks in chambers too small to see. He dated quietly, first a boy named Javier from the debate club, all sharp wit and stolen kisses in the stacks of the public library. Javier taught him the slang of survival, butch it up for job interviews, clocked for the stairs on the bus. But Javier left for college in Portland, and Abraham buried the hurt in textbooks. Med school came on scholarships and grit. He moved through rotations like a shadow, top of his class at the University of Washington, where the cherry blossoms in spring mocked his perpetual winter. Residency at Harborview was baptism by fire, gunshot wounds from gang skirmishes in the Central District, overdoses from the opioid shadows under the I-5 overpass. Abraham thrived there, his hands steady as he bypassed blocked arteries, his voice calm as he coached nurses through codes. Colleagues called him the closer, for the way he sealed lives back together. But love, that was the valve he kept clamped shut. Flings in dive bars off Pike Street. Quick, anonymous, like changing a dressing. No one got close enough to see the 14-year-old still hiding in his ribcage. Until Elias Navarro entered Abraham's orbit on a Tuesday in March, the kind of gray day where the Space Needle vanished into mist. He was a paramedic, 32, with olive skin and black curls that fell like they'd been tousled by Pacific winds. They met in the ER bay, Abraham elbow-deep in a trauma, Elias wheeling in the patient with that effortless grace, barking vitals like poetry. Male, 45, MVC rollover, tension pneumo on the left, get me a chest tube stat. Their eyes locked over the gurney, Abraham's hazel meeting Elias's dark brown, and something shifted, like a fault line under the Cascades. Later, in the break room, Elias cornered him with a coffee and a grin. You move like you've got the devil chasing you, document. What's your story? Abraham sipped, burned his tongue. Just trying to outrun yesterday. Elias laughed, low and warm, and in that sound, Abraham glimpsed a crack in his armor. They fell into a rhythm. Coffee after shifts turned to walks along the waterfront, where ferries cut wakes in Elliott Bay and gulls wheeled overhead. Elias was from Tacoma, raised by a single mom who waitressed at a seafood joint, his Spanish lilt slipping out when he got animated about his abuela's tamales. He was out and proud with a tattoo of the trans flag on his forearm. For the kids I pick up who need to see it's okay. Abraham envied that ease, the way Elias wore his queerness like a well-fitted jacket. One night, after a brutal shift pulling a drag queen from a hate crime beating, they ended up at Abraham's apartment in Belltown, a loft with exposed brick and views of the Sound. Rain lashed the windows as Elias traced the scars on Abraham's knuckles. Nicks from scalpels, burns from autoclaves. These tell stories, Elias murmured, lips brushing skin. Abraham pulled back, heart stuttering. Some stories aren't worth hearing. But Elias persisted, patient as tide pools, until Abraham cracked open. Over whiskey on the fire escape, he spilled it, the disownment, the bus ticket, the years of proving he was more than a mistake. Elias listened, hands steady on his knee, and when Abraham finished, tears hot on his cheeks, Elias pulled him close. You're not dead, Abe. You're a goddamn miracle. Their first kiss was salt and rain, Elias's mouth tasting of spearmint and solace. Abraham melted into it, hands fisting Elias's shirt, the world narrowing to the press of bodies and the distant wail of sirens. They made love that night, slow and reverent, Elias mapping every inch like a surgeon charting veins. Abraham woke to sunlight slanting through blinds, Elias's arms slung over his waist, and for the first time in 21 years, he didn't feel like a ghost. But ghosts have long memories. Weeks later, as their thing deepened, dinners at Elliot's Oyster House, lazy Sundays in bed watching old rom-coms. Abraham's pager shattered the idyll. A call from the ER, 2 patients, MVC on I-90 critical. He scrubbed in, mind on Elias's text from earlier. Miss you already. Dinner? The hors d'oeuvres swung open, and the world tilted. The first patient was a woman, mid-60s, blonde hair matted with blood, her chart reading Margaret Thorne, Spokane. Abraham's hands froze mid-glove. His mother. The second gurney rolled in, Harold Thorne, chest crushed against the dash. His father. The monitors screamed. Abraham's voice emerged, mechanical. Type and cross, 2 units. Prep for median sternotomy. Nurses moved like shadows, but he saw only the boy he'd been, abandoned at a depot, while they drove home to a life without him. As he incised, blade parting flesh, the irony clawed him. Here he was, the son they'd erased, now the one whose hands could save them or end it all. The heart beneath his fingers faltered, and Abraham whispered, "Fight!" For once, just fight. Abraham's world contracted to the rhythm of the heart-lung machine. It were a mechanical lullaby drowning out the chaos in his skull. Harold's aorta was a ticking bomb, dissected by the crash's fury, while Margaret's pericardium wept fluid like unshed tears. He worked methodically, clamping vessels, suturing grafts, his mind a fortress against the flood. "Bypass stable," he called, voice steady as rebar. But inside, the 14-year-old howled. "Why now? Why you?" Hours bled into the fluorescent glare. By the time he closed the final incision, dawn had crept over the Olympics, painting the recovery room in reluctant gold. Abraham stripped off his gown, the blood, his parents' blood, flaking from his skin like old paint. He sank into a chair by their beds, for lines snaking like accusations. Margaret stirred first, eyelids fluttering, her face a map of lines etched by regret or just time. "Abe?" she rasped, voice a ghost of the woman who'd sung him lullabies. He nodded, throat tight. "It's me." Harold remained intubated, his chest rising in artificial breaths. The monitors beeped their truce, but Abraham knew better. Survival was a fragile suture, one pull from unraveling. He texted Elias, "Family emergency. Rain check. No details." How could he explain this knot of thorns? Elias replied instantly, "Whatever you need. Here." Abraham pocketed the phone, the simple words a lifeline in the storm. Discharge from thee or brought no reprieve. Colleagues clapped his back. Textbook save, Thorn. Oblivious to the personal apocalypse. He wandered the halls, coffee bitter on his tongue, until he found the chapel, a quiet nook with stained glass filtering Puget Sound blues. Kneeling on the worn cushion, Abraham didn't pray. He bargained. If they wake, if they remember, what then? Forgiveness? Or the scalpel of truth? Afternoon brought visitors. A sister, Lydia, whom Abraham hadn't seen since she was 10, all braids and braces. Now 38, with 2 kids and a real estate gig in Bellevue. She burst in clutching a purse like a shield. "Oh God, Abe." Tears streaked her mascara as she hugged him, fierce and fleeting. "They were coming to see me." Bridge collapse on the bridge, traffic pileup. She pulled back, eyes searching his. "Mom said something last night about wishing they'd done different. About you." Abraham's laugh was hollow. 21 years too late for wishes. Lydia's hand squeezed his arm, her wedding band cool against his skin. "Maybe not. You're here. That's something." She stayed until evening, regaling him with snippets of Thorne family lore. The hardware store Harold sold to retire, Margaret's quilting circle, the grandkids who looked just like him at that age. Abraham listened, a detached anthropologist, noting how life had bloomed in the void he'd left. When Lydia left, promising to return with takeout, he sat alone, watching Harold's monitors march on. Elias arrived unannounced, bearing a thermos of pozole from his mom's recipe and a quiet that spoke volumes. He didn't ask, just poured, the steam curling like incense. They ate in silence at first, spoons scraping styrofoam, the soup warming the chill that had settled in Abraham's bones. Then Elias said, "Your folks." Abraham nodded, staring at the broth's red swirl. "Car wreck. They're stable, but..." He trailed off, the words too jagged. Elias set his bowl down, hand finding Abraham's under the tray table. "Talk or don't." "But I'm not going anywhere." The dam broke then, slow at first, a trickle of that bus station morning, then a torrent. The prayers, the $50, the years of postcards returned unopened. Elias absorbed it all, thumb tracing circles on Abraham's wrist, his dark eyes holding steady. "That's not family," he said finally, voice low thunder. "That's abandonment. You built your own world from ashes, Abe. That's strength, not shame." They walked the waterfront after, rain holding off for once, the wheel turning lazy circles under neon lights. Elias slipped his hand into Abraham's, interlacing fingers like puzzle pieces. "Remember that kid you saved last month? The one from the overdose with the pride flag tattoo half hidden? You told him he was worth the fight. Say it to yourself now." Abraham stopped under a street lamp, the halo gilding Elias's curls. I don't know if I can face them. What if they still see the mistake? Elias cupped his jaw, thumb brushing stubble. Then you show them the man, the doctor, the one who just saved their lives. That night, in Abraham's loft, they didn't make love. Elias held him instead. Bodies spooned under quilts Margaret might have sewn in another life. Abraham slept fitfully, dreams of incisions bleeding into memories of slammed doors. He woke to Elias brewing coffee, humming a ranchera tune, and for a moment, the ache eased. Days blurred into a vigil. Harold extubated on day 3. His first words a gravelly water. Abraham poured it, steady-handed, but when Harold's eyes focused, blue as faded denim, they widened. Abraham, disbelief, then something softer, like dawn cracking night. My boy. The words landed like a graph taking root. Abraham swallowed. Dr. Thorne now, Dad. But yeah, your boy. They talked in fits, weather in Spokane, the store sale, the grandkids' soccer games. No apologies yet, just the awkward bridge of small talk over Jell-O cups. Margaret woke fully on day 5, her hand finding his across the bed rail. We were wrong, she whispered, tears carving tracks. So wrong. Can you? Forgive. Abraham finished, voice even. I'm working on it. She nodded, clutching his fingers, the same ones that had pieced her back together. Elias became the glue, ferrying Lydia's kids for visits, charming nurses with his paramedic tales. One evening, as they watched the boys chase each other in the family lounge, Elias leaned in. This could be us, you know? A life, not just surviving. Abraham's heart stuttered, not from surgery, but possibility. Yeah, he said, tasting the word. Maybe. But Seattle's skies darkened again, heralding storm. A week post-op, as Abraham prepped for rounds, his phone buzzed. An unknown number, Spokane area code. Lydia's voice, edged with panic. Abe, it's the church elders. They heard about the accident, about you. Dad told Pastor Klein in a delirium. They're coming, saying it's a sign that you need to repent to truly heal them. The call dropped, but the chill lingered. Abraham pocketed the phone, jaw set. Betrayal's shadow loomed, his father's loose tongue, the past's tentacles reaching across states. Elias found him in the stairwell, face ashen. What's wrong? They're coming to save us all? Abraham said, bitterness curling the words. From me. Elias pulled him close, rain pattering the window like distant applause. Let them try. You've got an army now, me, Lydia, this whole damn city. But as Abraham nodded, doubt wormed in. Could he hold the line, or would the old wounds reopen, wider than any chest he'd ever cut? The hospital corridors felt narrower that morning, as if the walls themselves conspired to press Abraham into confession. He moved through rounds like a man underwater, vitals recited by rote. His mind adrift on the inbound flight path from Spokane. Pastor Klein and his flock, 3 elders, by Lydia's frantic update, were wheels down at Seattle-Tacoma, rental car beelining for Harborview. They think it's divine intervention, she'd said, voice cracking over speakerphone. Mom and Dad saving you from the lifestyle. Abe, they're delusional. He'd hung up with a promise to handle it, but handling felt like hurting ghosts. Now, as he charted Margaret's improving echo, her hand caught his sleeve. Lydia told me. The pastor. Her eyes, pale blue like Harold's, brimmed. I called him off. Said it's our mess to mend. Abraham paused, pen hovering. And he listened? She shook her head, a wry smile ghosting her lips, the first he'd seen. No, but you will. You're the strong one, always were. Harold, propped in the next bed, grunted agreement. Should have seen it sooner. Foolish old man. His voice rasped, but there was steel in it, the same that had stocked shelves through recessions. Abraham searched their faces, mapping the unfamiliar terrain of remorse. Why now? After all this time? Harold's gaze dropped to the quilt. The crash woke something, Saw my life flash, the store, the kids, you on that bus. Regrets a hell of a mirror, son. Margaret nodded. We buried you to bury our shame. But shame don't fill an empty chair at Thanksgiving. The words hung, heavy as humid air before a squall. Abraham exhaled, the knot in his chest loosening a fraction. We'll talk more, when you're stronger. He squeezed her hand, then Harold's, the gesture foreign yet fitting, like a graft finding its bed. Outside, the convoy arrived. A black SUV disgorging 4 men in khakis and polos, Bibles tucked under arms like sidearms. Pastor Klein led, silver-haired and square-jawed, the kind of Midwestern export who preached fire from pulpits cooled by lake breezes. Abraham met them in the lobby, badge gleaming under atrium lights. Gentlemen, visiting hours are limited. Klein extended a hand, grip firm as doctrine. Dr. Thorne, we've prayed for this reunion. Your parents' miracle is a call to repentance. The others murmured amens, eyes scanning him like contraband. Abraham's smile was surgical, precise, unyielding. They're resting, and my life's no sermon. Klein pressed, voice oily with concern. Son, we've seen the darkness. Let us guide you back. The word son landed like a barb. Abraham's vision tunneled, the lobby spinning to that kitchen table, Harold's chair scraping away. Guide? He echoed low. You mean condemn? I've built a life here, saving lives, loving honestly. That's my light. A nurse interrupted, pager beeping, but the seed was sown. As they filed to the rooms, Abraham texted Elias. Invasion underway. Need backup. Elias replied, on shift, but post it, your people will rally. He was right. By noon, the chapel filled not with elders but allies. Javier, long lost from debate days, now a lawyer in Fremont, showed with coffee and a bear hug. Heard through the grapevine. You need a witness. Then came Marcus from residency, bald and beaming, arm linked with his husband Theo. We're the Thorne Welcoming Committee. Word spread via group chats, nurses from the floor, a barista from Abraham's Corner Cafe who'd overheard tales over lattes, even the drag queen from the hate crime, now healing with glitter in her locks, swept in, honey, if they want drama, we'll give 'em RuPaul. The confrontation brewed in the family lounge, a neutral ground with vending machines humming like judgmental ants. Klein cornered Abraham post-rounds, elders flanking like sentinels. We've spoken with your parents. Their wavering old habits die hard. Join us in prayer. Abraham's laugh was sharp, drawing stares. Wavering? They're choosing life, theirs and mine. He glanced at the cluster by the coffee urn. Elias, off shift early, curls damp from jog. Lydia with her boys building forts from magazines. Margaret and Harold wheeled in, pale but present, hands clasped. Klein raised his voice, scripture rolling off his tongue like thunder. Leviticus warns. Leviticus also mandates shrimp bans. Elias cut in, smooth as a 14-gauge needle. But here we are, evolving. The room chuckled, tension cracking. Lydia stepped forward, fierce. Pastor, this family's mending on our terms. Faith's personal, no boardroom deals. Harold cleared his throat, mic drop quiet. Enough. Abe's my son. Gay or not, doctor's coat or not. We aired. That's on us. Margaret nodded. Go home, John. Pray for grace, not grudges. The elders deflated, Klein's face flushing puce. They retreated with mumbled blessings, SUV peeling out into the drizzle. The lounge exhaled, hugs and high fives rippling like aftershocks. Elias pulled Abraham aside, into a linen closet that smelled of starch and secrets. You were magnificent, he murmured, lips brushing temple. Abraham sagged against shelves, adrenaline crashing. Scared shitless. Elias kissed him then, deep and anchoring, hands framing face. That's courage, Amor. Facing the storm. They emerged to cheers, the group toasting with contraband sparkling water. For the first time, Abraham felt the family he'd forged, messy, loud, unbreakably queer. wrapping around the blood one like kudzu reclaiming ruins. But peace was fleeting. That night, alone in his loft, Abraham scrolled old emails. The silence after his coming out, the returned letters. A new one pinged, from an unknown address. Subject, truth about your father. Heart pounding, he opened it. Harold didn't just disown you. He took a payoff from the church to reprogram you. $10K wired to a clinic in Idaho. We were there too. It failed for all of us. Burn this. The words seared. Betrayal, deeper than abandonment. A transaction, his pain commodified. Abraham's hands shook, phone clattering to the floor. Elias, sensing the shift when he arrived for movie night, found him curled on the couch, eyes hollow. Abe? Talk. He handed over the printout, voice numb. They sold me out. Literally. Elias read, face hardening to flint. Bastards. We confront. Now. No. Abraham whispered, pulling him down. Not yet. I need you. They clung through the film, some indie flick about lost boys, but Abraham's mind raced. The healing he'd glimpsed shattered. Crisis loomed, a cardiac event of the soul, and he wondered if his hands, so deft with flesh, could mend this rip. Dawn broke over the sound like a reluctant witness, gilding the fairies in false gold as Abraham paced his loft. The anonymous email burned into his retinas. Elias slept on, chest rising steady, but Abraham's world tilted on the axis of that revelation. $10,000 for a shot at fixing him, wired to some backwoods clinic peddling prayers and pills. The betrayal wasn't just parental, it was institutional, a church ledger entry reducing his queerness to a line item. He dressed quietly, lab coat over yesterday's shirt, and slipped out, the doors click a small treason. Harborview's early shift was a ghost town, echoes of night nurses fading into handover chatter. Abraham bypassed the cardio wing, heading for the rooftop garden. A sanctuary of potted herbs and benches where staff stole smokes or solace. He sat, knees to chest, staring at the awakening city. Cranes etching skylines, baristas firing up espresso machines in Queen and cafes. The email's sender haunted him. We were there too. Who? Another kid from Spokane. Shipped off like contraband? He drafted a reply. Tell me more. When? Where? But deleted it, fingers hovering. Knowledge was a double-edged blade. It cut free or hemorrhaged. Rounds pulled him back. Margaret was up, knitting with yarn Lydia smuggled in, her needles clicking like metronomes. Slept like a baby, thanks to you. Harold joked about the hospital jello. Worse than my mother's. But his eyes tracked Abraham, wary as a deer scenting wolves. They sensed the shift, the new fracture. You're quiet, Margaret ventured over lunch trays. Abraham poked at his salad, greens wilting like hope. Just processing. Harold leaned in, voice low. That email Lydia mentioned? Church nonsense. Abraham's fork stilled. Worse. You took money, Dad, from them, to send me away. The words dropped like stones in still water. Harold blanched, color draining to ash. Margaret's needles faltered. What? The clinic. Idaho. 10 grand. Abraham's voice held, surgeon steady. But inside, the boy wept. Harold rubbed his sternum, fresh scar itching. It was a donation for counseling. They said it was voluntary, a fresh start. Voluntary? Abraham's laugh cracked. I was 14. You packed my bag. Margaret reached across, hand trembling. We thought it was help. The pastor swore. Pastor Klein, Abraham spat. His crusade fund. Silence swallowed the room, monitors beeping indictment. Harold's eyes welled. First tears Abraham had ever seen on him. God, Abe, I was scared. Of losing the community, the store. Of hellfire sermons. It was weak. Cowardly. Margaret sobbed outright, yarn tangling. Forgive us this too? Abraham stood, chair scraping. I don't know how. Not yet. He fled to the hall, chest tight. Elias's text lighting his phone. Missed you this morning. Call? He did, from the garden, voice breaking over the line. It gets uglier. Elias listened. Then, come to the station after shift. We'll drive to Tacoma. Mom's got a beach house. Reset. The promise anchored him, a bypass around the bleed. Shift dragged, a marathon of valves and vents. A young patient, barely 20, post-transplant scare. Gay kid from rural Yakima, disowned like echoes. Abraham held his hand through the echo, whispering, "You're enough. Always were." The boy nodded, eyes bright. Mirror, mirror. Elias met him at dusk, ambulance bay humming with handoffs. They drove south on I-5, windows down, salt air whipping in as suburbs gave to tide flats. Tacoma's Rust Belt charm unfolded. Derelict warehouses reborn as lofts, the Narrows Bridge arcing like a promise. Elias's mom's place was a bungalow on Ruston Way, porch strung with chili pepper lights, the sound lapping at pilings below. Rosa Navarro enveloped Abraham in a hug that smelled of cumin and sea, her silver-streaked bun soft against his cheek. "Mijo, you look like you need feeding." Dinner was pozole redux with fresh tortillas and stories, Elias as a toddler paramedic in training, bandaging the cat. Laughter bubbled, easing the clot in Abraham's throat. Later, on the deck, stars pricking the velvet sky, Elias wrapped arms around him from behind. "Spill the rest." Abraham did, the clinic specter rising like fog. Elias turned him, eyes fierce. "That's not on you. It's their poison. We flush it, together." They made love on a futon in the guest room, urgent and unhurried, Elias's body a map of safety. The dip of collarbone, the trail of hair south. Abraham arched under him, gasps mingling with waves crashing distant. "I love you." Elias breathed against his neck, the words a suture sealing. Abraham echoed it, tasting truth. Morning brought clarity sharp as iodine. Over coffee, Rosa shared her own tale, fleeing machismo in Guadalajara, raising Elias solo after his dad bailed. "Family's not blood, Abraham. It's choice. Choose yours." He nodded, resolve hardening. Back in Seattle, confrontation brewed. Abraham cornered Harold alone. Post-physical therapy. The room smelling of Bengay and beeps. The money. Details. Harold sighed, pulling a drawer for an old checkbook stub. Paid in '03. New Life Clinic, Coeur d'Alene. I thought, redemption. Abraham pocketed the stub. "It's evidence. For the others." Harold's face crumpled. "Sue me? The church. If it frees someone." He paused at the door. "Heal, Dad. Really heal." The crisis peaked that afternoon. Pager screamed. Code in Margaret's room. Abraham sprinted, bursting into arrhythmia, her heart rebelling, stress fracturing rhythm. "Defib." He shocked once, twice, hands on paddles like judgment. She stabilized, gasping, "Don't leave us again." "I won't," he vowed, but the lie tasted bitter. Elias waited outside, pulling him into an embrace. "You're cracking, Abe. Take a breath." Nights blurred, shifts, stakeouts of his own psyche. The email sender replied, "Clinic closed 10, lawsuits. I was there, name's Riley, Spokane survivor." Attachment. A group photo, blurry teens in prayer circles, Abraham's younger face haunting the frame. Rage simmered to resolve. Abraham drafted a letter to the church, Klein, the world. "I was your experiment. Now I'm the cure." Elias read it, pride shining. "Publish it. Let it bleed out." But betrayal's echo lingered. Lydia called. "Dad's confessing to the elders remotely. Wants absolution." Abraham's gut twisted. Another transaction? Tell him no shortcuts. As rain lashed again, Abraham stood at his window, Elias's warmth at his back. The journey twisted, healing a horizon mirage, but for the first time, he glimpsed the path. Through the scar, not around. The letter went viral before Abraham could second-guess it. He posted it to a quiet blog, From Dead Son to Heart Surgeon. The cost of conversion, expecting a ripple, not a tsunami. By morning, shares cascaded through queer networks. From Seattle stranger to national outlets like The Advocate, hashtags blooming like bruises. Thorn redemption trended. Strangers demanding solidarity. survivors surfacing like buoys in choppy waters. Harborview buzzed, colleagues stopping him in halls with nods or hugs. Proud of you, man. Even the chief, a stoic Korean woman who'd mentored his residency, clapped his shoulder. This saves more than hearts. But fame's glare scorched. Abraham dodged cameras at the bay, pulling his hood against the drizzle paparazzi mistook for drama. Home was sanctuary, Elias barricading the door with takeout and tequila. You're a rock star, he teased, pouring shots. Abraham clinked, but his eyes shadowed. Feels like exposure therapy gone wrong. They scrolled comments together, vicious trolls spewing Leviticus, countered by floods of Me Too from ex-gay trenches. Riley, the sender, Skyped in. A lanky 30-something with tattoos veiling track marks, living in Portland's underbelly. Your words? Lit a fire. Groups forming, survivors, lawyers. Want in. Abraham leaned into Elias, screen glow painting their faces blue. Yeah, for the kids still there. Riley grinned, gap-toothed. That's the doc I remember. Stubborn hope. Publicity pierced the hospital bubble. Margaret's room became a shrine of flowers, from church ladies recanting, from Lydia's PDA moms. She devoured news clips on her tablet, pride warring with worry. They'll come harder now, the zealots. Harold, discharged to a rehab floor, grumbled over physical therapy printouts. Stirred the hornet's nest, son. But damn if it ain't right. The nest stung that weekend. Klein arrived uninvited, this time with a deaconess and a lawyer, bearing a settlement offer. Hush money masked as restitution. $50,000 to bury the blog. They met in a conference room, sterile as an autopsy. Abraham flanked by Javier, now his pro bono counsel, and Elias, thumb hooked in his belt loop like an anchor. Klein opened smooth. We're contrite, doctor. The church erred in the aughts. This closes the chapter. The lawyer slid papers, non-disclosure gleaming. Abraham scanned, then tore them slow, confetti snowing the table. Chapters don't close with cash. They end with accountability. The deaconess bristled, cross necklace swinging. Blasphemy. Elias snorted. Try extortion. Javier leaned in, shark grin. We'll countersue for defamation, emotional distress. Every kid you saved is a plaintiff waiting. Klein's facade cracked, eyes narrowing. Your father's a member. This fractures families. Harold, wheeled in by a nurse, barked from the door. Fractured it first. Get out, John. My tithe's done. The trio slunk away, tails tucked, but their parting shot lingered. God's not finished with you. Betrayal's aftertaste soured dinner that night. Lydia's potluck at her Bellevue split level. Kids shrieking tag in the yard. Abraham picked at lasagna. The anonymous email's ghost whispering not enough. Elias noticed, excusing them to the deck, overlooking manicured lawns fading to dusk. What's eating you? Abraham gripped the rail, knuckles white. What if it's all performative? Dad's confession, mom's tears, photo ops for redemption points. Elias turned him, hands warm on hips. Then you walk. But I see real change, the way they ask about us, about your shifts. Give it soil. A call interrupted. Harborview, urgent. Patient crash, Elias's rig en route. Abraham's heart seized as he drove, code red lights blurring streets. The ER bay was frenzy. Elias on a backboard, helmet cracked, from a pileup on Aurora. Hypotensive, splenic lack. The trauma lead barked. Abraham scrubbed in, hands steady by will alone, as they wheeled his lover under lights. Incision revealed the bleed, spleen shredded like wet paper. Abraham clamped, legated, his world narrowing to red and rhythm. He's strong, he murmured to the organ, as if pleading with his own. Transfusion poured in, monitor stabilizing, and as they closed, Abraham's knees buckled in the scrub sink. Don't you dare leave me, he whispered to the empty air. Elias woke in recovery, groggy grin cracking lips. Told you I bruise pretty. Abraham laughed, tears salting the words, collapsing into the bedside chair. Idiot. My turn to save you. They held hands through the night, IVs tangling like vows, the crisis forging something unbreakable. Healing's path steepened. Abraham visited Riley's group via Zoom, virtual circle of scarred souls, sharing war stories over muted mics. One, a trans man from Boise, echoed his disownment. Parents called me demon-possessed. Now I code for a non-profit. Irony's a bitch. Laughter bonded them, tentative bridges over chasms. Family mended in fits. Harold joined therapy sessions, virtual with a counselor specializing in religious trauma. Admitting weakness is hell, he confessed post-call, voice thick. Margaret quilted a pride flag for Abraham's loft. Colors of courage, she said, cheeks flushing. Lydia mediated, her kids drawing him cards. Stick figure docs with rainbow stethoscopes. Romance blome da mid hubo. Elias, sidelined from paramedic duty, crashed Abraham's shifts, charming patients with dad jokes. They stole moments in on-call rooms, quick and quiet, Elias's laugh muffling against shoulder. This scar? He traced the surgical line on his abdomen. Badge of your badassery. The climax crested on a crisp April eve. Cherry blossoms shedding like confetti in Volunteer Park. The church board summoned Abraham. Public apology, they claimed. In the sanctuary shipped from Spokane's timber. He went, Elias at his side, Javier on speed dial. The pews held a mix. Elders stern, congregants shifting, Harold and Margaret in the front row, hands clasped white. Klein ascended the pulpit, voice booming. We gather to heal divides. But his eyes glinted, and as he pivoted, yet sin demands reckoning. The room ignited. Protesters outside, survivors' signs bobbing. No more buried alive. Inside, a plant, paid actor, lunged, spitting vitriol. Abomination. Chaos erupted. Fists flew, pews toppled, Abraham shielding Elias as security swarmed. Harold stood, bellowing, enough! His voice cracking the din. Margaret clutched Abraham, a human wall. In the melee, Klein cornered him, whispering, You did this. Ruined us. No, Abraham countered. Calme me de storm. Truth did. Police cleared the hall, arrests made, but the wound gaped. Betrayal's final lash, the church's facade crumbling to reveal rot. As sirens wailed into twilight, Abraham and Elias walked away, arms linked, blossoms tangling hair. It's over, Elias asked. Abraham shook his head. Just beginning. The crisis had peaked, but from its rubble, a new heart beat, scarred, resilient, alive. The aftermath of the church melee rippled like aftershocks through fault lines Abraham thought sealed. News trucks camped Harborview's perimeter, anchors breathlessly recapping. Ex-gay survivor storms sanctuary. Abraham dodged them, routing through service tunnels, his badge a passport to anonymity. But inside, the quake trembled, patients whispering in bays, nurses shooting supportive glances, the chief pulling him for a closed door. PTO if you need. This is bigger than us. He didn't take it. Work was suture stitching normalcy over the raw. A valve replacement that morning. Elderly lesbian couple in the gallery, hands clasped, their quiet love a balm. Abraham paused mid-stitch, gloved hand hovering. How'd you make it? He asked post-op, chart in lap. The wife smiled, wrinkles fanning. One forgiveness at a time. And a hell of a lot of potlucks. Elias, on light duty answering dispatch, texted memes, sanctuary shenanigans with exploding church emojis, easing the edges. But nights in the loft brought the real unravel. Dreams of pulpits aflame, Harold's checkbook stubs curling like indictments. Abraham woke sweating, Elias's arm tightening reflex. Ride it out, he'd murmur, lips to spine. Dawn comes. Family fractured further. Lydia called daily, voice frayed. Dad's talking separation. From the church, maybe mom. Margaret confirmed over FaceTime, her quilt half-finished on her lap, needles idle. He's raging at himself at them, says the payoff was the devil's bargain. Abraham nodded, screen between them like miles. Let him rage. It's progress. Harold's call came unfiltered, post-rehab discharge to Lydia's guest room. Abe, I wired the money back. Full amount, plus interest. To the survivor fund. Silence hummed, then Abraham's throat cleared. Why? Harold's exhale crackled. Because it was blood money. And you're my blood. The gesture landed soft, a graft without fanfare. Abraham met him for coffee in Bellevue, neutral ground. A strip mall Starbucks, pumps hissing like confessions. Harold arrived early, cane tapping, face gaunt but eyes clear. Read your letter. Twice. He slid an envelope across. Handwritten, pages thick. My side. Burn it after. Abraham took it home, read by lamplight, Elias dozing nearby. Harold's script looped. The pressure from Klein post-confession, whispers of boycotts at the store, Margaret's pleas drowned in prayer chains. I chose fear over faith, he wrote. Real faith would have fought for you. Tears blurred ink, Abraham's chest heaving. He didn't burn it. Tucked it in a drawer beside Elias's spare keys. Healing's arc bent romantic. With Elias benched, they reclaimed Seattle in stolen hours. Ferry to Bainbridge, hiking Discovery Park's trails where madronas shed bark like old skins. One afternoon, under Cedar's dripping mist, Elias dropped to knee. Not proposal, but promise. When I'm cleared, let's do this right. Road trip, California coast, no pagers. He held a vial of sound water, corked. For washing clean. Abraham pulled him up, kissing fierce. Deal. But first, my turn. That night, he cooked. Halibut from Pike Place, asparagus charred just so. Candlelight dancing on brick. Over wine, he shared the letter's weight. Elias listened. Then, you're forgiving the unforgivable. That's love, a hard one. Intimacy deepened, bodies knowing each other's topography. The scar on Elias's side puckering under tongue, Abraham's freckles mapped by fingertips. They talked futures, adopting maybe a kid from the system like Abraham once was. Teach him resilience, Elias said, head on chest. And tamales. Crisis echoed in echoes. Riley's group swelled, virtual meets turning to in-person. A bar in Capitol Hill, low lights and high spirits. Abraham spoke, voice steady. They declared me dead. I resurrected myself. Nods rippled, stories spilling. Suicide attempts, lost decades. One woman, 40s, clutched his hand. Your blog? My coming out at 50. Thank you. The church's counterpunch landed subtle. Anonymous tips to media, painting Abraham as agenda-driven, the crash a hoax setup. Javier quashed it legally but doubt gnawed. At a support meet, a new face. Young, early 20s, eyes haunted, whispered. Klein still running sessions. Underground. My brother's there. Rage reignited, surgical. Abraham rallied. Petition to AG, survivor affidavits stacking like case files. Elias joined pickets outside Klein's home in Shoreline. Signs reading no more buried. Arrests followed. Not theirs, but Klein's associate, caught with materials. The news broke mid-shift, Abraham pausing mid-echo, stethoscope cold on a patient's chest. Margaret called then, voice quavering. We're leaving Spokane. For good. Near you, maybe Renton. Harold's gruff add-on. If you'll have us. Abraham's yes was whisper soft. The healing a tide turning. Climax crested personal. Elias cleared for duty. Their celebration derailed by a call. Harold, chest pains, en route from Lydia's. Abraham met the rig, Elias driving, irony thick, wheeling his father straight to cath lab. Angiogram revealed blockage, the crash's ghost clogging arteries. Stent, Abraham ordered, threading wire like fate. Through the procedure, monitors mocking, Abraham's mind flashed. The bus, the clinic photo, the melee's shouts. Harold woke groggy. First words, proud, son. Always was deep down. Abraham's hand found his, pulse sinking. Deep down's enough. Romance's bloom-faced wilt. Post-stent, Elias pulled a double, and Abraham crashed alone, the loft echoing. A knock shattered quiet. Tommy Whitaker, quarterback ghost, now 40, lines etched from corporate climbs in Chicago. Saw the story. Had to see you. Coffee turned confessional. Tommy's marriage. Kids. The closet's slow suffocation. That kiss? Saved me in a way. Came out last year. Abraham listened, old sparks dimmed to embers. Glad you're free. But as Tommy left, hug lingering, Elias walked in, misreading the vibe. Who? Elias asked, casual but edged. Abraham explained, but seed planted, jealousy, that green vein pulsing. Just closure, he insisted. Elias nodded, but distance crept. Late texts, shifted shifts. The rift widened at a group dinner. Riley's crew at a Capitol Hill taqueria. Laughter loud. Elias, tipsy on margaritas, cornered Abraham in the alley. Tommy's eyes said more than closure. Abraham recoiled. Trust, remember? Elias's face crumpled. Hard when ghosts knock. Words escalated, old wounds flaring. Elias's fear of abandonment, Abraham's of unworthiness. I can't be your experiment, Elias spat, storming to his truck. Abraham chased, rain slicking streets. You're my life. But taillights faded, leaving him soaked, heart arrhythmia wild. Crisis solo. Abraham drove to the beach, Alky's sands empty under moon. Waves chewed pebbles, mirroring his churn. Phone silent, no Elias, no family check-in. He screamed into surf, salt mingling tear and tide. Dawn found him shivering, resolve crystallizing. Fight, not flight. He texted Elias, I choose us. Every scar. Reply took hours, me too. Beach? They met at low tide, arms colliding, apologies dissolving in kisses. No more ghosts, Elias vowed. Abraham nodded. Only us. Healing's crescendo built. Margaret and Harold relocated. A bungalow in West Seattle. Sunday dinners tentative. Pot roast beside pozole. Grandkids quizzing Abraham on hearts. The fund grew. Lawsuits landing settlements. Klein's empire crumbling to indictments. Yet humanism's core pulsed quiet. One evening, walking Green Lake with Elias, dogs splashing, Abraham paused. I was dead once. Now, alive in ways they never imagined. Elias squeezed hand. And holding ours. Summer unfurled over Seattle like a hesitant truce. Sun gilding the markets where Abraham and Elias wandered hand in hand. Baskets brimming with heirloom tomatoes and basil that perfumed their loft like new beginnings. The church saga faded to footnotes. Klein's trial in federal court. Headlines shrinking as queer winds mounted elsewhere. Marriage equality anniversaries. Trans rights rallies snaking through California Anderson Park. Abraham testified remotely. His words a scalpel dissecting the clinic's cruelties. Survivors' faces lighting screens with vindication. Work steadied. Hands rediscovering grace. A transplant that July. Donor heart from a crash victim. Recipient a teen from Tacoma. Elias's old stomping grounds, with a pride pin on his gown. Abraham matched them mid-op. The organ blooming pink under lights. Post-op the kid. Name Milo, gripped his wrist. Heard your story. Makes me braver. Abraham smiled, suture needle pausing. Bravery's contagious. Family wove tighter. Harold's rehab turned hobby. Woodworking in the bungalow's garage, carving queer icons. A tiny stonewall figure for Abraham's shelf. From old timber. He joked over beers on the porch, Margaret shushing with iced tea refills. Lydia's kids dubbed Abraham Uncle Hart, demanding piggybacks and stethoscope games. Sundays evolved. Potlucks blending thorn casseroles with Navarro salsas. Laughter drowning old silences. Romance rooted deep. Elias returned full duty, rigs roaring anew, but carved space. Date nights at the Paramount. Seats for indie bands pulsing with synth and skin. One night, post-concert in Pioneer Square. Under brick arches strung with lights, Elias knelt for real. Ring simple. White gold band etched with heart valves. Tiny. Marry me, Abe. Let's build the life they tried to bury. Tears pricked. Abraham hauling him up. Yes. God, yes. They celebrated at their bar. Shots for the crew. toasts to resilience. Home. They made love slow, ring glinting on finger, bodies sinking like chambers in systole. Crisis's embers flared once more, a final test. Fall brought Milo's follow-up. Rejection brewing, antibodies rebelling. Abraham caught it early, echo shadows, lab spiking. But the code hit during rounds, crash cart thundering. He led the charge, defib in hand, Elias bursting in off-shift, face ashen. Fight, kid, Abraham urged, shocking once, twice. Rhythm held, fragile as frost. Vigil in ICU, Milo stabilized his parents, accepting, tattooed allies, thanking Abraham with hugs. You gave him a second chance. Elias, wiping sweat, murmured, like you did us. But the scare unearthed Abraham's core fear. Loss, the ultimate disownment. That night, loft dark, he confessed over whiskey. What if I can't save everyone? You them? Elias cupped face, thumbs tracing jaw. You don't. You show up. That's the miracle. They clung, storm passing, dawn pink through blinds. Healing culminated in winter's hush. Christmas at the bungalow. Tree strung with mismatched ornaments. Thorn angels beside Navarro Milagros. Fire crackling as snow dusted the sound. Harold pulled Abraham aside, box in hand. A restored pocket watch, engraved time heals. From the store's safe, ticked through it all. Abraham wound it, tick solemn. We make time now. Margaret gifted quilts, pride patchwork for the wedding. Lydia filmed vows for posterity, kids scattering petals. The ceremony, spring equinox in a lakeside chapel. Secular, sun-dappled, drew hundreds. Survivors, colleagues, Rosa beaming front row. Abraham, in slim tucks, hazel eyes locked on Elias's dark ones, spoke vows raw. You held my heart when I thought it dead. I vow to hold yours, through every beat. Elias echoed, ring sliding home. From ashes to always. Kiss sealed, cheers erupted, the world affirming. Post-honeymoon, Big Sur cliffs, waves carving canyons like redemption, they returned changed. Abraham's practice expanded. Pro bono clinics for LGBTQ youth, hearts mended free. Elias mentored paramedic trainees, emphasizing empathy in codes. Family dinners weekly, Harold's jokes landing softer, Margaret's hugs lingering. One eve, volunteer park under harvest moon, Abraham and Elias sat on a bench, city humming below. Think they'd be proud? Abraham mused, head on shoulder. Elias kissed temple. They are. Look around, the lives, the love. Humanism's lesson crystallized. Not erasure, but emergence. The boy declared dead had risen, not vengeful but vital, holding hearts, his own foremost, in hands scarred by mercy. Betrayal's blade dulled to tool, forging a legacy of quiet revolutions. As stars wheeled, Abraham whispered, we're the miracle. Elias smiled. We all are.